All right, welcome to Wowed by Zones, a podcast about reviewing every zone in popular MMO World of Warcraft. I'm Ari.
I am the one called Torin, and I am enjoying being wowed or not wowed by zones.
I'm Awen, and I am the Slayer of the Nazgul. Just so you know.
The one from the book.
Yes.
We actually got rid of our sister. She's no good on the podcast. We found Awen from the book. We pulled her out. We put her in here.
Yeah, she sounds exactly like the old Awen, for reasons that you shouldn't think about.
Right.
Exactly.
We thought about getting my namesake, but then we realized that he was very old and wouldn't understand video games, and we thought that
Also,
Awen would
he likes
just...
slavery too much.
Yes.
Yes.
That doesn't make sense if you don't know my full name is Aristotle. Hi.
Also, he doesn't speak English.
Oh, that's true.
I mean, technically, Awen doesn't either, but like.
And she kind of does, though.
She speaks the language of Middle Earth, which is England, so it's fine.
Sorta.
All right, so our zone we're talking about today is Westfall, the second zone of the human starting experience. And I want to say just right away, my God, is it so much better than Elwood Forest?
Yeah, it's
it's hard to be worse than Elwyn Forest.
I was very excited to get to Westfall because it's such a beloved and like classic zone. Or it is the way that Elven Forest is, but I feel like a lot of the time people think about Elven Forest, think about Western Forest, going into Westfall, going into Redbridge, going into Duskwood, right? These more compelling and complex zones.
Westfall also has the most beloved dungeon of vanilla in it, and perhaps like the entire game.
Dungeon in vanilla.
No, Deadmines is the most beloved.
Blackrock Depths is the most beloved.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. People complain about Blackrock Depths constantly. People have a much more vitriol in their heart for Blackrock Depths than they do for Deadmines. Blackrock Depths is more important, but Deadmines is more beloved.
I don't know if I agree with that, but you are right that Deadmines is beloved.
I have decided it is, so screw you if you disagree with me.
Deadmines also has a very funny history in Classic WoW. It's the place you go to like farm up really good gear, so you can then stop your leveling at level 19 and then just do battlegrounds.
Twink rogue, be like
that level 19 battlegrounds. That's a fun meta. Yes. Said no one ever.
Hey, I did that.
Yeah, I did play a ton. I love the level 19 meta. It was actually quite
really
good.
Fun.
It's just like it's very much about getting ganked by rogues.
Ari just hates rogues because he's a loser.
No, it's just that everything is rogues.
Ari hates poor people who are forced into a life of thievery. Ari is the elites of Stormwind.
I see.
Oh,
I can't
God.
believe it's time to cancel me for being on the side of not the bandits.
Anyway, walking into Westfall, the first thing you know, it is just it's dry. Everything is dry. The Elven Forest isn't like a rainforest or something like that, but it's a very healthy, green, loving place. And you walk from there into Westfall, and you're just like rolling hills, the occasional scraggly tree, and just yellow dead grass. It's and the first thing you see in front of you is an overturned wagon.
It's just a prairie.
Or not, but it was a wagon with a few people. It's like it's not just a prairie. If you actually talk to the people, they just go, "Oh, this place used to be as lush as Stranglethorn, but like bad farming practices led to it being like stripped over and just destroyed all the environment."
They really pulled a fertile crescent on it, didn't they?
I mean, they're medieval people. They don't know how they're supposed to be farming to not ruin the land.
I feel like they do, though. They're just stupid.
That historically is true. Like in most medieval societies, there's a reason why most industrial level farming societies had a relatively high uptake and consistency of like more sustainable practices. Where industrial farming was not interested in that because they had endless colonial lands to work from. So
true.
No.
Also, it was very much in support of the first or second war.
The first war.
The first war, which is why that it was overfarmed, like intentionally.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure while the time the orcs were occupying it, they were not being good stewards of the land.
Oh, probably not.
They be raping and pillaging. Classic.
Orcs gotta work.
Doomhammer moment.
Damn.
All right,
he kind of sucked though.
It does provide a very like stark transition.
What?
Don't worry about it.
Okay, it does provide.
I feel like you wouldn't want Oakham Doomhammer to give you a blowjob. Like somehow, I feel like that wouldn't go well.
Each their own.
I just don't think it would be good.
This was not a mental image I wanted, and I would like to apologize on behalf of my sibling who is being canceled now.
What? Why am I being canceled? Torian made the joke first.
Why did you think I was talking about you, Ewan?
Oh, I feel like I'm more deserving of being canceled most
You
of the
just
time.
someone was canceling you?
It was always like on the lookout for people canceling her. She's like,
I say a lot of problematic things about fucking orcs and trolls, okay?
those are problematic things. They're just
Okay.
based.
Yeah, I agree.
So, as you were saying, yeah, Westfall's sad, dry, shitty farmland. And it is
Sad.
an interesting vibe to like move from the like lush, nice land of Elwyn to this little like you expect the Pokoro music from Bionicle, the Matsutui Online game, to start playing. A reference that
No
someone
one knows
will get.
what that is. No one can like be like, oh yeah, that familiar theme. What the fuck?
Bum, 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 bum,
This is
bum,
not a
bum.
Bionicles podcast. This is a WoW podcast.
It reminded me of the West music in Westfall.
I'm so that's good because it should.
I remember when I was there, I'm like, where have I heard this music before? They go, yeah, when I did Westfall like 10 years ago. That's what I thought.
It was more than 10 years ago.
So,
No, wait, it was like 20
Yeah,
years
it was like
ago.
15 years ago.
It was actually 20 years ago.
I also the first thing you see isn't just the overturned wagon. Then you turn to the right, and you see a bunch of scarecrows that are just walking around and just being scary.
Yeah, this is actually cool. Almost all the farms in the whole zone, despite being supposedly a place that supports itself through farming, are just filled with these mechanical scarecrows, which are like chased up all the farmers. They're like one of the quests you get is kill 20 of them, or is it 15?
I think it
It's
was 20.
It's 20.
It's
like,
20.
It's like one of the highest like kill quests you've had in Classic WoW up to this point.
I also don't understand how like these things even got here in the first place. It's like
that's explained later.
That's explained.
Later. Yeah.
oh, I must
They're
have missed
biased.
it.
Yeah, I mean, you see when you go into the dead mines later, you run into them, and they're built by the one guy, and they're like.
Oh yeah. No, I'm so dumb. Yes, yeah, it's Goblin Engineering. Yeah, I forgot. My bad.
That's why it looks similar to the shredders, but like made out of like.
But it's interesting because I think that these shredders really do these Carnivus Watchers really do a good job of like instilling this paranoia, because they were basically sold these things. Oh, these are gonna help you with farming, all these sorts of things. And they all just start going haywire and start killing farmers, going crazy. It's like, oh well, the one thing they got support from, got away to like finally like work their lands again, is like literally turns to them and starts killing them. And I think that is an extreme.
Oh, that's interesting.
Paranoia in the land that sort of comes from that, right? Because it's like, oh, Stormward's not helping us, right? We don't have anything there, and then maybe we'll buy from these goblins, these people selling these sorts of things. This will help us. We'll finally have a way out. They start.
I
like,
feel like
farming
paranoia isn't the word. Yeah. It's more despair and hopelessness.
Yeah.
But not trusting anything, right? You walk in, they're always like they're kind
sure,
of
generally distrust, but they've seemed to have like completely given up. Like they're like, oh yeah, I guess we'll hire you to kill these guys, but everything is terrible and Stormwind won't help us, and we're all gonna die, and we can't farm, and everything's terrible. You know, like it feels more like despair than paranoia to me.
Sure. Yeah, I feel that.
People are very clearly trying to just pick up and get the hell out of Westfall. Things are not going well.
The first quest giver you meet is someone who's just getting the fuck out. They're leaving. They're taking their evil horse. Old Blanchie, who ends up in the same place as Kael'thas. Literally, this horse's crimes are so bad that he goes to the same hell that Kael'thas has to go to.
Old Blanchie's a vicious creature, apparently. When that's for Shadowlands. We're not there yet.
We'll talk
about the important story of Old Blanchie when we get to Shadowlands. I guess.
As we first say, but yes. Now part of the reason that everyone's got themselves in arms and is just like despairing of the fact is because every single like bit of the town has been completely dominated by the criminal gang, the Defias Brotherhood. Yeah, remember those guys from Elwyn that were like in the woods and starting things? Here's where their base of operations is.
When you say town, do you mean Moonbrook, or do you mean Westfall as a whole?
I mean Westfall as a whole. They have clearly like taken over. The Harvest Watchers are answer to them. The Defias Brotherhood is like hiding out in a bunch of places in these mines. They've hired the Gnolls to work for them. Like They
Same with the
own
Murlocs
West.
and the Kobolds. Like literally, all of the enemies are in support of the Defias,
Yeah.
The Defias
except the
own
random
it.
animals.
Yeah,
The
it's-
Defias own this place.
Yeah. It's not just they own it; they are this place, right?
Yeah.
The vast majority of the humans in this place are Defias. We have like Sentinel Hill, which is one little thing. Then we have like scattered farmers, and most of them have already left for like Elven Forest long ago.
Because the Defias Brotherhood
Defias
drove
are
them
the only institution that really exists here that works, right?
Hey, the People's
well-
Militia is doing a great job hiring random people to kill Defias for them. Okay,
works
you can
quote
tell
unquote.
that they're in control because they're hiring random mercenaries to help them. That's always a good sign.
Because yeah, that sort of gets back into the fact that the state of the Kingdom of Stormwind is like. So you talk to so you don't see Stormwind guardsmen anywhere. You don't see like the institutes of like the power of the actual state of the Kingdom of Stormwind here. You see volunteer militia, an outnumbered and outgunned volunteer militia that has been put together to just protect what they can. That has not been like completely overrun by these criminals, which provides which. And by the way, they have like names and stuff too. Like each of these are like clearly like people. Probably they're other farmers from here that have picked up a sword, been trained by Grian Stoutmantle, the dude in charge, and they're just doing their best they can.
Also, important to note, Grian is a former soldier who fought in the First War. He is not currently within the Stormwind military. He retired to come back here and farm his land again, but was like, oh, well, this place is fucked anyway. Let's try and fix that. So, like,
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
Grian's a cool guy in this
Yeah.
version of Westfall.
It's clear, like, you know, we see how Storm has sort of fallen apart when we like looked at Elven Forest, how all the mines have gone fallow. They're no longer being worked, and we saw that like obviously the Defias have hired kobolds in those mines working the both the mines in this zone also are like run by the Defias. Like all these like setups of like, you know, gold that are supposed to, you know, be taxed and go to helping the people and that sort of thing obviously have dried up. They're not being supported. I mean, this all goes back to the fact that Storm is being run by a dragon right now.
Spoilers.
Spoilers. Onyxia. Lady Presto is Onyxia.
God, that's crazy! I can't believe it. I thought she was like not related to Lord
Mhm.
Prester, who I know is Deathwing, obviously, but Lady Prester, I thought she was a good lady.
That's fair. I see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that you could get this Westfall, and the fact that all these sets of power, like Westfall itself, is like was once a lost breadbasket that's just now nothing, right? There's clearly a Stormwind has no interest in it anymore because it doesn't offer any economic gain to them. It doesn't really do it. It doesn't really exist as a protection of Stormwind power. Like you compare it to Redridge, which is a much more developed, it's clearly human like town. There's clearly like an economy there. There's clearly important like I think Redridge. I think there are mines in Redridge. I don't remember what their economy is based on, but it's clear that and even
No,
Duskwood.
it's mostly based around the big lake.
Yeah, and Duskwood even has a more intense human thing. This place is abandoned, not just like on a, oh, we are no longer like, you know, giving wealth to these people. We're no longer like to protect people. It's on a complete economic level. It is like just cut off. It is not really. It's almost can't be considered a part of the Kingdom of Stormwind as anything but through name.
Right. Now,
I mean, I feel like Duskwood is also just as cut off, but in a different, like for different reasons.
true. I think we'll get more of that to that, but the larger point does apply.
Yeah. No, I agree.
The only people who are still fighting for like Westfall are volunteers are volunteers and mercenaries that they've managed to hire. That's it. So that sort of brings us to the Defias Brotherhood. The bandit, the bunch of the gang of roving bandits that owns Westfall
With stylish masks. They look good.
I do push the fact that you collect Stormwind as this collection of highwaymen and thieves, right? That's sort of what they're seen as by Stormwind, how there is, but they are a full community. The town of Moonbrook is a Defias town. It is. There's even like a merchant there. Like they've all the economy of like Elven Forest, of their mines and of all the it's all going towards Defias Brotherhood. They're more than a collection of bandits and thieves. They're like almost a they're almost a
They're a
kingdom to themselves.
They're
Yeah,
they are a
important to note that
Mhm.
there's no children around, though.
Yeah, it's true.
they are a terrorist state.
Yeah,
Like literally, that is what they are. They are
Yeah.
big, in which you sort of find out as the whole like Defias Brotherhood stuff like expands. Like as the quest line you go through to find out like what are they doing, what's the purpose of there, and you go through and find out about their leader, Edwin Van Cleef, a former member of the.
To be
Sorry?
clear, just before we I really love how at first, like, cause we sort of see these bandits as just like, oh, they're just bandits, the same way in Elven Forest, just like in the woods, they've got their weird red bandanas, but they're just like, gonna
That
beat people with
sexy
steel.
red bandanas.
Yeah, sexy. Why do we have this podcast again? Anyway, is it just to talk about how sexy random things in WoW are?
Can we talk about Vol'jin again? I really want to talk about Vol'jin.
We're not talking about Vol'jin in the Westfall episode.
Why? We're
Because
not
he's
Stranglethorn
sexy.
Vale. Stranglethorn Vale is where the trolls are
That's
from.
later.
Hey, he's not from Stranglethorn Vale. That's where the Gurabashi are from. God.
True.
Anyway.
But there used to be connected before the sun. Whatever. The Darkspear are originally from Stranglethorn. Very, very
yes,
long ago.
as you're saying, like the way the Defias move from effectively they're initially introduced as these just like asshole fantasy bandits who like you kill because they're doing fantasy bandit things, to the larger conspiracy that is going on with the rest, to move into Westfall, the town that the place that they just actively run.
Yeah.
And then you go from there to the Defias Brotherhood quest line.
Yeah.
Which you were saying.
Yeah. And five quick questions, like literally like finding little notes, little like evidence. Wait, this seems more than we think they are, right? There's way too much organization here, way too much power projection. The gnolls and the kobolds, they're all, and the murlocs all seem to be like organized by these Defias in this way. And if you look over, like eventually you get sent to Redbridge, basically where there's an informant, right? Pretty much a criminal himself, but it's a cool
It's
question.
Wiley the Black.
Wiley Black. You walk across like the entirety of this kingdom of Stormwind from one end to the other, to find this one person who knows the secret of what happened to Edwin Van Cleef.
Yeah, and he's clearly very afraid to tell you the information in the first place. Like he's super cagey about it, and he won't even tell you the information. He just gives you a letter.
Because he clearly fears for his life because Edwin Van Cleef is massively able to project power right now.
Yeah, which is like kind of, I really like the idea of just like a rogue like second state that's like almost pretends it doesn't exist, right? It's so shadowy that the fact that it's even a nation is hard to even see, and it's just hidden from the world. It just isn't like a fancy idea. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's very cool.
Especially because I think it works on this like social idea that like often gangs and the like serve as a alternate state in a lot of like ungoverned areas, like throughout the world, right? You even see this in like inner cities all the time, right? Where traditionally, like in early 20th century, for example, with America, a lot of our inner cities didn't have very good welfare systems, and so instead we had basically organized crime to be like, oh, well, as long as you give our payment and abide by our weird rules, you can. We'll keep you protected. We'll keep you healthcare and so on, right? And it's kind of interesting how that functions. I really liked this like take on that idea of like the secondary state within the larger uncaring like liberal state.
Not that this is a liberal state, to be clear. This is
a
medieval kingdom.
It's a later precedent, but there is a level of like, Stormwind just tries to be that, right? That's clearly an idea of Stormwind. There's not some like top-down extreme like monarchy where all decisions happen that way. It's a much more sort of natural sort of powers come from various sources and the like.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's important to note that like Stormwind is like King Varian Wrynn. Well, he's not there. Sorry. Stormwind is supposed to be the leader of a bunch of different kingdoms that all have their own individual leaders. So it's like it's very decentralized power.
I've always talked about this kind of bothering me that they're the ones theoretically in charge, even though that makes no sense whatsoever. But that's for another episode.
I mean, I think it's because like it's just the standing alliance with the dwarves, and then the gnomes are attached to the dwarves, which ropes them in. And then the Night Elves joined later, which is why the Night Elves feel way separate from the rest of the factions in vanilla.
Also, I don't know. I feel like it makes sense because Lordaeron was the former leader of the Alliance, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think
The Alliance was originally the Alliance of Seven Kingdoms. Stormwind basically took up the mantle of Lordaeron after Lordaeron fell. It wasn't
Right.
like I don't think it was like some sort of like, oh, it's organized around Stormwind. Or Stormwind just happened to be like heroes of the First War and the like, and so they just sort of took on the mantle.
Well, they lost the first war, to be clear.
Sure.
Yeah, but Lothar like was
He was
a
a cool guy.
super big hero guy, and everyone liked him. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
it's one of Anduin's namesakes.
True. It does bother me a little bit, mostly because I feel like the center moving from Cosmodon to Stormwind doesn't really make much sense, but we'll get into
You
it.
just like dwarves. freaking
Dwarves
loser.
don't want to be the leader of an alliance. They don't
Yeah.
want. They're exclusionary. They exist away from the world. They try to be like that.
Mhm.
Plus, Magni already has his own struggles with dealing, like with having the Dark Iron and the
Yeah.
fucking Wild Hammers.
Plus, like, there's only one. I mean, there's technically two dwarf institutions. There's the Wildhammer and the
Mhm.
and the. But there's still 5 more human kingdoms that are technically in the alliance.
Also, the humans are much more willing to work with each other than the dwarf kingdoms are.
Yeah.
To be fair, of course, the alliance in Vanilla WoW is very decentralized.
Yeah.
Like-
Which I literally said that.
Yes.
Hmm.
The point is, I think it makes sense for Stormwind to be. They're the only real people who could lead the alliance.
Yeah,
I think.
especially because
I
Lady
guess.
Prester is intentionally manipulating the system, like so that
Yeah.
she has more power.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's true.
Now, so as we were saying, so Edwin Van Cleef, he turns out he is not just a roguish bandit. He's clearly an ideologue, someone who has a grudge against Stormwind because they commissioned the Stonemasons Guild to rebuild the city after the end of the First War. The thing that, again, which is what caused Westfall to be in the state that it's in the first place. And then he didn't get paid. And then he got
Well,
completely
actually,
snubbed.
the stonemasons in general were not paid, but most of the high level like management were offered like positions of great power within Stormwind society.
Mhm.
Edwin himself included in that. But Edwin, ever the heroic figure, was like, fuck you, you can't screw over my people. And he leaves Stormwind intentionally, like off in a huff with the stonemasons. And that's what makes up the Defias. Is these are people who were betrayed by Stormwind.
Mhm.
And because of it, they don't see Stormwind as a proper authority. So they clearly see themselves as the real the
The Real Housewives.
people's power.
Yeah, I mean, they think of almost like they take a very like they're clearly not like just like poor people who are sort of rising up. They're relatively educated people, you know. They're come from a relatively middle class sort of context, right? This is who push this. For them, it's like it's not like we are starving, so we need this. It's we were wronged by the state of Stormwind. Stormwind,
Yeah.
as Aiden said, and therefore our society, our world must be this more grounds up, right? People led sort of. It's very Russian Revolution.
It's very interesting how you have that going on and that like have that imagery. While at the same time, the reality of their domination of Westfall has pushed out the people there. It has ended livelihoods. It has destroyed and killed many of the little people who've gotten screwed over, and that's why they've had to like make the people's militia just to fight his gang.
Yep, I mean, yeah,
Which is really interesting.
It's literally a terror tactic. Right? They literally like gave the farmers these golems to help them farm, that then just like went high wire and started killing them. Right?
That's pretty fucked up. Not
Yeah.
cool.
It's interesting to have like that simultaneous thing. It's an interesting bit of gray area for like the Defias there.
I think the Defias aren't really interested in reproducing themselves in terms of like they don't seem to be like, as you said, like Eowyn, did you mention there was no children in Westfall?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to note because the Defias gets all its wealth basically from the mines they control all throughout Elwind and and Westfall, right? It's clearly entirely like money driven like enterprise, right? As long as they can pay their people will be able to. They're the supporters of whoever is in the party, to use like the Russian sort of metaphor. Is they're well off. They've got their money. They've got their power, right? We don't need like a full functioning farming state that reproduces and feeds kids and grows, because that's just not the kind of world we are. And they do like that dual like how the ideology of Edward Van Cleave clearly doesn't actually reflect in his kingdom.
Now, to stop this, you are then cast go to the dead mines and kill him. The dead mines are so cool. So the central and most important town in Westfall is Moonbrook. It is the largest and theoretically was at one point the most prosperous of the towns of Westfall. It has like huge farms and fields, big.
It's the
storehouses.
only town in Westfall.
Sentinel Hill's kind of like a town.
Sentinel Hill's not a town. It's literally a tower and a little shack. And then there's tents set up. It's not a town.
There's also the woodworking being done there.
There's working.
Yeah, but it's not a town.
But that's fair.
True. There's just an inn. There's no actual houses, and like
Moonbrook is the only town.
Yeah,
I think that's important.
That is true. Sentinel Hill is a thing that was effectively set up in a pre-existing fortification that the people who joined up the People's Militia have like retreated to like
Yeah, like all of the merchants like are in like tiny like literally there's sticks with blankets over them that they're standing underneath. Like there's it's clearly a temporary setup. It is not a place people actually live.
True. Moonbrook is an actual town, and in the large barn, because it's a farming town that is in the town, you find there's this hidden little passageway in the back that leads to a massive tunnel network that has been dug out underneath the barn, in which like powerful, like well-equipped bandits are there. You have to fight them, and you emerge into the first dungeon that most Alliance players will do: the Dead Mines. God, the Dead Mines are cool.
It's a really cool. It's just like, first of all, it's on a visual level. Like the whole thing, you go through all of these dark tunnels. You come, you feel like sort of like the hints at the power. You emerge at one area. You emerge to this forge, which is just giant. Clearly, very like there's no other forge you can see in the whole game outside of in the two dwarf kingdoms, major dwarf kingdoms of that size in the entire world. I think. It's a massive forge, just like massive like power. They're forging their army to then take Stormwind, of course. And then you go past that. And I think the big moment is when you blast open the door with a cannon. It's like locked iron doors, and
you just pickpocket because you always are playing a rogue.
Yeah, but we didn't have a rogue this time, so we blasted it, Eowyn.
Yeah, pretty cool.
That noise.
And we look over, and it's just like it's
the biggest ship that's ever existed within WoW.
Yep,
a dreadnought.
Yes, this is their weapon that they are going to use.
It's literally described as a weapon of mass destruction.
Yes, in
the letter, it's crazy.
Yes,
it is this huge, massively armored ship with bristling with cannons, and is clearly is pretty much close to being finished and ready to sail out and attack Stormwind.
I love this because I think even to this point, all the hints that the Defias are sort of a alternate kingdom exists, but they're not like clear. They don't quite like you're still sort of thinking. You're finally given like the actual power proof of this, and I love that. Like as like a moment, it's like, oh, this is I can visually see and physically feel the fact that there's nothing like this in Stormwind. Stormwind's gonna lose if they go to war with these guys. Stormwind has like a few soldiers, like a few like battalions there. They're shipping.
They have a whole dragon lady in the throne room.
It's true. Yeah. Anixia would win if she fought the dreadnought, but I don't think Anixia is gonna fight the dreadnought.
Damn it! I was counting on her.
And I love that.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
So you climb up the boat, kill Edwin, who spends the entire fight ranting about how he is the rightness and the Brotherhood is going to win the day.
All of you.
Bap dogs, all of you.
He's got a kind of sexy voice also.
It's
Sorry.
true, he does.
It's my job to point these things out.
Yes.
Yeah, we love Matthias Shaw's ex-boyfriend.
Okay, they definitely weren't dating. Okay, I'm sorry, but that's not Matthias's type. Matthias doesn't like serious guys. He likes super ridiculous bisexual like whores.
Yeah, but Matthias thinks he's serious, but he's really not. But this guy
he literally got kidnapped in Legion and was replaced by a demon like the entire time.
And no one noticed because who would notice? It's Matthias Shaw.
Matthias Shaw's too bland. And they said, sorry, his personality's so boring. No one noticed.
If you don't know Matthias Shaw is the head of SI7, the basically the secret
covert ops.
The covert ops of the Kingdom of Stormwind, and he sort of puts you on this. He's part of the person who puts you onto this whole quest, looking forward.
Stop posting shipping art of Edwin Van Cleef and Matthias Shaw in the chat. That is unacceptable, Eric.
I accept it.
No,
thank you.
It's not the ship. That's the wrong ship. How dare you? Anyway,
the feature zone. It's just like, oh, you're the hero of Westfall. You get a big announcement. You get the first blue item you've probably ever owned. Blue is there's gray, white, green, blue, purple, orange.
It's a good item. It's like the second best item that you're realistically gonna get.
Yeah.
In tier wise.
Yes. And that it's over, and you're like, okay, I guess I've saved the people. Yay! Good work.
Mm-hmm.
And then you leave.
There is a bit of a continuation of the Defias Brotherhood quest that leads into like a prison riot. But if I'm being honest, not as much is really made of it as it probably should. This zone sets up some mysteries, and it doesn't, that I don't think are totally given the time they needed to.
I don't know. I feel like that's intentional.
Yeah.
The part of the point of this zone is that Stormwind isn't doing anything to fix the problems within its own kingdom. And it also just doesn't care. Even when you bring them up, you're like, hey, this stuff is happening. They literally do not care. They're like, okay, good job. Bye-bye. And then they do nothing. And that's kind of the point of the entire zone. That's the point Edwin Van Cleef was making, is that Stormwind is corrupt and Stormwind won't help.
Yeah.
There is also a hint that there's also an interesting hint that is given in the quest line that some of the noble houses of Stormwind are funding the Defias Brotherhood, which is why they were able to hire on all those goblin mercenaries and smelters and pirates. So that's a thing that is,
It's because he's working for Lady Prester.
Yes.
Yep.
She's Anixia. Spoilers.
Ultimately, Lady Prester wants to keep Stormwind weak. Stormwind's own institutions want Stormwind to be weak. And so it has no interest in projecting its power into Westfall. Now, that kind of, I feel like, brings us to Cataclysm, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of the no children in the Defiant.
So Cataclysm Westfall.
Sorry. Well, the main villain of Cataclysm Westfall is the one child that's in the Defiant.
My girl, Vanessa. Sorry, so spoiler alert.
Her name's Hope. Hope
Saladin.
What?
She represents the hope of Westfall.
That's embarrassing.
So that was incredibly telegraphed off.
Yes.
So Cataclysm Westfall, you go in there, and it turns out the Furbolgs have been murdered.
Yeah, she's in hell with Kael'thas now.
Guys, I still think it's really hilarious that they never managed to leave. They never just picked up their cart and went to Elven Forest. They're literally right on the border. They never left. This is like 5 years later. They're still there.
They literally just stood there until someone murdered them.
And there's a dude who's a reference to CSI Miami.
Hey, Lieutenant Horatio Lane is a great guy who puts on sunglasses to emphasize the puns he makes about people dying. Can't imagine a better person than that.
It's a very strange first impression.
It's hilarious.
But yeah, alongside that, what you see in the farm is not the defies you're used to, but rather a bunch of people that are called like drifters or hobos or those sorts of languages.
Small-time
Transients.
hustlers.
Yes, exactly. These people like clearly
Wait, did you say trans?
No, I didn't, Dalen. Gleave.
But the woke, it's
I can't.
it's
Okay,
ruining, it's
Alright.
ruining Westfall.
It's confirmed that Catechism Westfall is woke, and we don't have to revert it anymore. We just know it's evil, like left-wing propaganda.
Okay, I do want to be clear disclaimer that we are in fact pro-trans rights here.
I am literally eating fucking estrogen right now.
Stop eating estrogen. That sounds
Yum.
weird.
Yum.
Delicious.
Weird.
So yeah, just in case if we got any chuds in the audience, get the heck out of here. So as we were saying, yeah, there's a bunch of homeless people that are out there in the farms, and they are not particularly inclined to be sympathetic to Stormwind. One of them literally talks about how, hey, it's fucking Varian Rin's fault that. Oh yeah, hi, the king's back. He's in charge of Stormwind now, and the alliance has
He's
been
really
more
good at
centralized under his
standing
control.
there and looking majestic, but not much else.
Clearly, as we see with Westfall Cataclysm.
And they talk about how no, it's his fault that everything's gotten worse here, even without the Defias there. There's been no real changes, and people have been just aimlessly stuck homeless in Westfall.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that like there's a lot more people like who's not in the Defiant Brotherhood in Westfall, and they're literally all transients, hobos, grifters,
Mhm.
right? It's all these sorts of people, right? Maybe you can imagine maybe some people came back to Westfall, after they heard, oh, the Defiance is gone, maybe it'll be easier to farm here, or maybe some of these people were ex-Defiance people who just sort of stayed in Westfall. But whatever it is, they didn't find their promised nice life.
Nope.
It
Actually-
also could be former Defias members.
That's why I said
Yeah.
that, Aaron.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, I said. But I agree. We don't know who these people are, but whatever they are, they came to Westfall for some reason, and they were not given anything. They were not given farm. There's not a lively economy here. Actually, the only change physically to the space of Westfall is Sentinel Hill, and they're not houses.
What about the big vortex?
Yes, okay. There's a big vortex, but it literally doesn't matter, which is crazy. I don't know.
They
what
don't acknowledge it.
It's just there. The tornado is there. It's not as cool as the Darkstorm tornado. We don't have to worry about the tornado. It's just there.
It's something that did change.
Yes.
That
Besides
is
the fact
true.
that there are very few. We don't see. There's not like a bunch of Defias everywhere. That's the one change, and then the other change is Sentinel Hill. You're like, oh, Sentinel got built up. Maybe it's turned into a proper town, built up, housing for these people. Maybe shops. No, it's a big wall. They built a bunch of. They built a bunch of like military. They brought military in. They've turned the People's Militia into a proper militarized force. Like
That
it is.
Ryan Stoutmano became a fucking pig because he got commissioned to go to the fucking Northrend during the
Yeah.
Wrath of the Lich King, and then he was like given all fancy command and stuff. Now he's part of the Stormwind establishment.
Now he's part of the system.
I mean, we say this like funny thing, but that's literally what happened in Westfall.
Yes.
He says even the language of the People's Militia. They don't longer talk about how Stormwind's abandoned them, but they are going to do their best. They're like, oh no, Stormwind prevail, hail Stormwind, we're great now, everything's cool.
Woo!
They're
Turns out
very
when you give people-
dismissive to the threats of Westfall and like the fact that people are pretty much lives have not changed. In many
Also,
ways,
literally, the only thing that's different is they're not Defias wandering around. There's still Gnolls. There's still Murlocs, like everywhere. Literally nothing has changed except the Defias aren't actively present.
Yeah, Moonbrook has not been revitalized and turned to a place for people. It is a ghost town.
It is.
Hey, there's a military camp right outside of it now.
Well,
Great.
so all Stormwind really did, as we can see, is power project. They put their military there to make sure that we don't want to lose the control of this space without actually doing what they're supposed to as a country and taking care of these people, right? And a lot of the quests are very similar, right? Going around killing harvest golems, that are still around,
uncovering conspiracies.
And through others, there's quest, right? There's the main question of the zone, which is our Hurrish Chalet we mentioned earlier. Basically,
investigating the deaths of the two people. Like basically, it starts with the deaths of Old Blanchie and the what are the fucking
The Furl
farmers?
Bros.
Furrow Bros. The Furrow Bros deaths. And it sort of takes you on a journey through the different farms, talking to different like homeless people, and discovering that there's some sort of weird, mysterious figure who's she looks a little feminine. She's a silhouette. It's very strange.
Yeah. She's
And
just
speaking-
and that woman is, she's organizing things. Like something is going on. There is there's a conspiracy here. Something's happening, but we don't really know what it is, right? We don't really see like we know what happened in the last Westfall. We know about the Defiance Brotherhood in the old alternate kingdom, but we don't really see such a thing here. There's no like large scale power projection, right? There's some there's no Defiance Brotherhood as we can see. Or
Now-
is there?
Now, in the meantime, there is exactly in addition to Horatio Lane, there is one new NPC added to Westfall. So Farmer Saldines, which were the guys who had you kill all the Harvest Watchers and then do it again, have adopted a daughter, Hope Saldine.
She hot.
She represents the hope of Westfall, and she, you have a quest for her where you go and help feed a bunch of homeless people.
Yep.
What a nice lady.
Oh, sorry.
then you go-
You
and then you-
forgot there. You forgot about Admiral Ripsnarl. He's also there. He's a new
Yeah,
NPC.
he's hot too.
That's fair. Yes, the bosses. Spoiler alert: the bosses of Deadmine show up. Of the new Deadmine show up. But yeah, there's a Worgen Admiral. There's a Goblin who is
The Worgen
in a
Admiral
tower.
is in stocks, like
Yes.
right outside the big tower. Like,
That's
and
cool.
they keep trying to. Brian keeps trying to interrogate him, but they are not able to get anything out of him about the
Mhm.
general conspiracy going on. On.
And then you do the quest for Hope Saldine, and you come back to her, and she tells you, "This will be remembered when Judgment Day comes." She fucking says Judgment Day.
She's crazy.
She's a high tier LARPer, and we're here for it. Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. She's the silhouetted figure. It is
She's-
not subtle.
Yes. We found out later that she is actually Vanessa Van Cleef, the daughter of Edwin Van Cleef, who
Watched her father die.
Also, why was he keeping his 10-year-old daughter in the cabin of his weapon of mass destruction? That is just irresponsible parenting. That is on him.
Because he didn't trust anyone else besides himself to take care of her.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
mean-
still not okay. Sorry. That's not
Yes.
an excuse.
Yes, Edwin Van Cleef is an evil man. This is known. Like, he's
Trying to
not a
justify
good
his
man.
Bad actions. He could have just hired one of his many highwaymen to babysit her. That seems like a great idea, I think.
now I want to
Oh,
like
wait.
I want to read like a story of just like Vanessa Van Cleef like going around Westfall and actually but insisting to be taken to like Stormwind and that sort of thing by her like highwayman guys, like okay I guess, and just like some like master rogue, so he's like able to like sneak her around and like show her all the sights of like the Kingdom of Stormwind.
It's so weird.
I
Weird
like this.
fanfic.
My fanfiction is this is good. I like this fanfiction.
Okay.
God.
It's okay. You can write it while Ari writes his Matthias Shaw Edwin fanfiction. It's the same universe.
As I was saying,
Yeah. Sorry, go
I
on.
don't know. I think it would be cool if they were Axis. I think that would be cool. But anyway, that's regardless. So yeah, she brings back the Defiance Brotherhood, to raise the flag against Stormwind, and has taken it, makes successfully attacks and burns down a whole bunch of Sentinel Hill.
Also, she
And,
is cheered by the people of
Yeah.
who in Westfall. Like, they cheer for her as she gives this big speech. Like,
Right.
they are so fucking unhappy. They want the Defiance, like an active terrorist group, back in
yes.
Westfall.
Yeah, the Defiance were the one thing that gave people the one economic and communal source that existed in Westfall that had actually any meaning, right? It's like now that's gone. Obviously, they did horrible things, but they had something, and now that they were replaced by Stormwind power projection, they were like, well, "This is what we want back." And I think that's kind of crazy as a concept.
And
people in Westfall are so desperate that like they will take the.
I mean, it makes sense.
back.
Like you literally can just see the situation. These people are definitely they're fucking starving. There's tons of them. They have nowhere to live, nowhere to go. Obvious, like they need any change is good change when you're in that situation.
And Stormwind just spent all their fucking money invading Northrend, which obviously these people don't care about.
Hey, it was important.
It was important, true.
I understand why.
It's actually interesting when we get to Northrend. Like, there's actually a massive amount of like human building projects, like, but several like huge like castles they built in Northrend. They're spending a lot of economic resources on this Northrend campaign.
Some of them were already there.
Yeah, that's fair.
Built up by Arthas, like the ones in fucking Dragon. What's it called? The dragon one, the middle one.
Dragonblight.
Yeah, that one.
Dragonblight. That's the one.
Like, but Valiant Keep is new.
Yeah.
Valiant Keep is huge.
Yep.
Yeah, but the point is, Stormwind's like again, they have no economic interest in Westfall. Westfall can't actually provide them with the research they used to previous to the First War. So it is purely this dead area that they only want as a buffer against Stranglethorn.
Very sad.
It's interesting too because there's this giant like the Longshore, right? There's an entire beach area of Westfall, which they could build the stocks up, like try to turn Stormwind into more of a naval power, but they don't. I think that's kind of I never really thought about that.
Because they have to wait a lot of expansions until we get to battle for Azeroth, and then we we need the Kultirians' help because they have a navy and we don't. That's why they can't have a navy, Torin. God, don't you ever think 10 years in advance?
Yeah, it's like, oh no, we need to. If we have a navy, then the Kultirians will feel kind of sad because they're not doing anything in the alliance,
Also, the only reason they needed to go to Kul Tiras to get a new navy was because they chased after one fucking troll princess who blew up their entire fleet.
It's true. That did happen.
That's on them.
That was pretty cool, though.
Next time, don't chase after a random princess with your entire fleet. That's really stupid.
Yes. To be fair, the fleet wasn't that big.
Yeah, it was a pretty bad fleet.
Yes, but yeah, so Westfall's just not interested in. So Vanessa here, she's going to liberate. She's going to, bring back Edwin's rule, bring back his image. I'm actually not sure exactly what her goal is. Outside of rebuilding.
Vanessa. I don't think she was thinking that far ahead. Vanessa was powered entirely by her own hatred of the people who killed her father, which is the power of Stormwind in her mind. It's like what she wants to do is she wants to take revenge for her noble father, and I don't think she's thinking a lot beyond that.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree. I honestly am. There's also the very there's the uncharitable reading is that the only the reason she is feeding the homeless and cares about doing this for them is so that she can
I strongly disagree with that.
I'm saying that's a uncharitable reading you could make of her, but the point
I just disagree with that reading her. I think that's completely wrong, and it because she values her father. Her father is her hero. Her father saw himself as the hero of the people, and she sees herself as that too. And because of that, she cares about the people. She cares about feeding them.
Which is interesting because her father did not. Definitely did not care about that.
Yeah. Vanessa exists as someone who idealized her father and values the things that she thought he valued and he represented.
Yeah, I mean, she clearly does care about feeding people, right? For her, it's she very much is a grassroots figure. I think, but
she's not going to send you on a quest to feed people if she doesn't actually care about feeding them.
Totally.
She doesn't have that clear sort of intellectual belief of the rights of the people that I think Edward Van Cleef does. In a lot of ways, it feels like she's aping his language, his aesthetics, while being sort of almost like being a child.
I don't think she's not being manipulative. She's being unthinking.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think for her, it's she sees herself as the child of Van Cleef, and so it is her job, her role as her blood carries what Edwin Van Cleef did, and so she has to do that to, properly serve her father.
Yeah.
I also think it's worth noting that both of these are people who fundamentally revenge comes before any of their high-minded ideals and desires. Both of those come secondary for both of these people to revenge. In Edwin's case, revenge for the wrong that he's done. In Vanessa's case, revenge for Edwin's death, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah.
My one issue with this zone, my one biggest, aside from I think the beginning of the zone does suffer a little bit, just like it doesn't quite work as a first impression. My biggest issue with this zone is...
I disagree. I like his sunglasses.
My biggest issue with this zone is just... it doesn't work as a standalone zone that is not just specifically a direct sequel to Westfall. Nothing about this would make sense to nothing about anything that happens in this zone means anything to a new player who hasn't played the original Westfall. Which is a shame.
Yeah, it's entirely a sequel.
Mm-hmm. All right, I think...
I
don't... Sorry, I was gonna say I don't know if that's a problem.
I think I really like Cataclysm in a way feels almost disappointing when it is just a standalone zone. I think Cataclysm a lot of times is more effective when it exists as
right,
because it's just really I think a good chance to be oh, here's what happened there, here's what changed, and here's what didn't change, and why does that matter? And what does it say about the Kingdom of Stormwind, for example? And I think that's really cool. I like that's an uncommon thing you have in a game like World of Warcraft to go and massively sort of get to redo and do a sequel and new future for all these different spaces and what happened. And I really
that's fair.
I really like how they do the sequel here, especially because they've been so disappointing about it in other zones. And I feel like it's bad to say I don't care about new players being confused. But I really just prefer it as this representation of the uselessness of Stormwind and how it forgets its own people.
Well, I get what you're saying here. I don't know if I can totally agree with that with the saying not caring about that stuff, because this is an MMO. This is a thing that is theoretically meant to improve the experience for new players, and instead they created an experience that only works if you've done the original version of the zone. Darkshore, by comparison, works on both levels. It is a great zone in and of itself that provides a good self-contained story that also provides a nice really cool, and is elevated by it being a sequel. Westfall isn't that. Westfall is entirely buoyed by being a sequel and has nothing to offer outside of what it adds to the original Westfall.
What about Horatio Lane's puns?
Wait, Vanessa faked her death?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. So, fun fact: when you do the heroic version of Deadmines and actually finally fight Vanessa Van Cleef, you theoretically kill her, but then they wanted to keep her around for other.
But she literally hasn't shown up.
She does. She's in the rogue quests in Legion,
and
she's involved in. And she's involved in the human, the
How
human
did I forget that?
heritage. She's also involved in the human heritage armor quest line.
That's kind of hot. I like that.
I mean, actually, this seems really cool stuff. So apparently, the Defias sort of disintegrated, and she had to and she all the principal people left them, and she was kind of stuck in the situation where the Defias failed to be what she wanted to be. It's a really cool story. I like really
that she joined the Uncrowned too. I think that's cool.
I do too.
Anyway,
that's the Legion,
but it is beyond the scope of this. Of this zone.
I think we've gone through the zone. We want to do our thing.
Sure thing. What was your least favorite thing about Classic Westfall?
My least favorite thing about Classic Westfall is just the unused potential. The zone is actually quite big, and there's a lot of interesting spaces. There's these Murloc societies, you got the gnolls around, right? There's this specific Defias line going through, but I just feel even though the story that's there is effective, I feel it's so small and self-contained in a way that I don't know, it disappoints me. I feel Westfall could be more. There could be more story told about here. Especially because it feels to me that Westfall in a way is a continuation or the conclusion of a lot of the story of Elwyn Forest, learning about the corruption of Stormwind, of how this whole system works. And it feels if we just do this very simple thing, I feel you lose a bit of the sort of, I don't know, multifaceted area. Westfall just you do some farming, help some farmers out, and then you go and fight the Defias. That's really what the entirety of the zone. There's one quest to kill Murlocs. That's just for their eyes, and one quest to to
There's
kill.
two quests.
Yeah,
There are two quests to kill Murlocs.
Yes,
Because you find a ghost.
It's true. Yes, there's a ghost stuff, but it just feels like the zone is bare in a way that kind of makes you sad.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, that's the easiest one. Fuck you. What the hell? That's the one I wanted to pick.
I think I'll take something similar, but it's a little more of an extension of that because the zone was, by the way, the second one they ever designed, and I feel like it's still a little primitive. It's less primitive than the first zone they designed, Elwyn Forest, in that sense. And I do think they took a lot of interesting lessons from it, but I think they could have done more with the uncovering of the conspiracy. I feel like you kind of get that all at once at the end of the zone, and there is some cool stuff done with the with the just the way the zone evolves from how it does in Elwyn Forest. But I just feel like there could have been more of that in a way that I think is a little unfortunate. Maybe a little more to characterize Edwin Van Cleef from the perspective of, for example, his followers. I kind of wish the Defias trader or the mercenary runner we could have talked about Edwin and see how that perspective exists.
Yeah, I agree. I do want to comment that real quick that I think Cataclysm does this almost feels like a do-over and does I think a lot better job at doing that same thing, and more slowly building up the conspiracy because you understand what's going on as you're looking at these different levels, seeing different murders and learning where it's all come from. I think that the idea and what you're saying is good. It's just frustrating that it feels like they didn't successfully execute that.
Mm-hmm.
My least favorite thing, I was gonna talk about the Defias Trader quest.
Okay, go ahead.
So I think the Defias Trader quest is really interesting in that you finally get to talk to someone who's actively a part of the Defias, or was, but I feel like there's so much missed potential in that quest in that he doesn't talk about his experiences within the Defias or why he joined or anything about it. He's just like, oh yeah, I wanna get off, I want to get my crimes dropped, blah blah blah. He's an entirely selfishly motivated character, and it's I really wanted to see the Defias perspective within him, and I didn't get any of that, which I thought was disappointing.
All right.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I do. I also want to comment that there's just the fact that as we talked about, Stormwind sees and the players that come into the first to Westfall sees the Defias as a bunch of thugs. We find out in reality they're not that, but it feels like a lot of times the not that quality is not properly expressed to you, and oftentimes it almost feels like they default to we're telling big a story with a bunch of thugs, and so it's treat them like a bunch of thugs.
You know what they do? Classic. It's literally the quintessential problem with classic WoW is they do this constantly with the fucking furbolgs, back in Teldrassil, not having any perspective from them. It's always just the outsider's perspective or the hyper insight. You never get to see why the people that you're fighting are doing what they're doing. It's frustrating.
So, what was your favorite thing about classic Westfall?
My favorite part of classic was honestly how the actual quests are used. I really like that you don't get any money rewards from them. All the money you get is from killing Defias and taking the money off them. The zone is barren. I think they do an insanely good job. The village is just beautifully realized. You could just be oh, there's a barren a crappy grassland seems like a kind of a boring idea, but I love how it's executed with the rolling hills, the farm, the farms have such a distinct architecture to them. I love Moonbrook. I love the construction of dead mines. It's the whole just general feeling of the zone is just top notch. Honestly, one of my favorite. This is probably my favorite since outside of Terrace Folkblades that we've experienced so far in terms of just pure beauty. Maybe Bulgur.
Vibes.
The vibes.
Vibes are very good. I'm gonna take an easy one here. It's Dead Mines.
Damn it!
The approach to the approach just from the Moonbrook barn into the depths of this massive mining operation through the Goblin lumber mill and the forge to this massive dreadnought. It's just so cool. It provides the perfect thing of that sort of unraveling stuff that just in terms of what the Defias are, it perfectly sets a climactic conclusion to the zone. It's so good.
Also, it's just a fun dungeon.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also a good dungeon, which is unique for a lot of classic WoW stuff.
LOL. Okay, my favorite is I'm gonna talk about like Moonbrook itself. Apparently in Vanilla WoW, Moonbrook was the most deadly place for PCs. People just be killed by random guys in this village all the time. Just because it's like crazy filled with Defias. Like you get one guy, you're gonna get at least two others on you. They're all there. It's very frustrating to go through by yourself. Like you're just gonna die a lot in vanilla. I think it's just a really good way to set the Defias up as like an actual power within like because fighting random bandit camps around, like it's like okay, they're here, but I didn't really like it. Really hammers home just how present they are, how powerful they are within here. It's like the only town in this entire zone is entirely populated by the Defias, the enemies. There's also like I also really like that the like we talked about earlier, the merchant within one of the buildings in Moonbrook that you can talk to and sell stuff to. It's just like this is a real community that exists here. Like even though there aren't any children, like giving it a more temporary feel, it still feels like this is what the Defias are, like an actual community that functions.
All right. Now, what was your least favorite thing about Cataclysm? Cataclysm Westfall.
So for mine, I'm going first because I'm tired of people taking my stuff. Uncool. I'm gonna go first. So I'm gonna say the quests that were given by the ghost guy. Like literally, the zone knows that you have no reason to go over to the lighthouse based on how the quests are designed within the Defias storyline. So it literally, Brian is like, hey, there's a ghost over in that lighthouse. You should go talk to him. And you're just like, okay, whatever. You do. The guy sends you to kill some fucking murlocs, and you're like, okay, I sure did that. I just think it's really clumsy quest design, and zone design. I think I just didn't like it. I thought it was weird and tacked on.
Yeah, my least favorite thing about Westfall is probably the fact that I feel like there should be more sense of the institution of Defias as how they kept around and how they disappeared, and it kind of makes me sad that that's not there, right? Because like Defias is obviously still really important in people's mind, and the more important, all the more important, and like educated people of Westfall, those sorts of things, that were in the Defias. That was a big institution. And the way that I feel like the zone is almost like agnostic to the specific experiences of how the Defias culturally shape things. And it just makes me kind of upset. I don't know. I feel they could have done more to be like just like dialogue from farmers talking about the Defias or those sort of things. Like a lot of it feels like I just have to like it's all from Vanessa Van Cleef's like perspective, and I think that's a little sad.
It's a little tough here because there's a lot of stuff that like I could want to pick. I think my least favorite thing about about Cataclysm Westfall is that I always felt myself when I was doing it feeling like I wish this was in service to the original Westfall plotline sometimes. I get what they were doing here, and there's a lot of cool stuff, but there's a lot of like things that I felt. The fact that I felt like a lot of the best stuff in Cataclysm Westfall was stuff that I wish was in the original Westfall's story, I feel like is kind of a knock against it. Does that make any sense at all? Or
I mean, I don't get it personally, but it's your least favorite, not mine.
I see kind of what you mean. Like, I mean, I think it almost like relates to my complaint about the first, the part of Westfall. Westfall feels like an incomplete zone, and Cataclysm Westfall also feels kind of like an incomplete zone, right?
yeah,
They both feel like they do one thing, and then that's sort of it. And it feels like it's just sort of leaving the space. The fact that you're playing an MMO, MMO's best skill is having a world that you are in, and go around and do things in. And without that, it feels sort of like, oh, I guess we're just doing this Defias quest, right? It feels more like a quest than a zone in some ways.
All right, what was your favorite thing in Cataclysm Westfall?
I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna say I think it's Vanessa Van Cleef as a character. I love her. I think she's awesome. The fact that Vanessa Van Cleef shows up at this farm as a 10-year-old, says, "I have amnesia. I don't know my name. I don't know anything. I want you guys to raise me. And they're like, oh, of course, we'll make you hope. You are the hope of the people. Like, she sells this idea. From the beginning, she's building up her empire from her as a 10-year-old, right? Look at the contacting Defiance people, slowly building things up until finally she's like, okay, well, I have it. Rebuilt the Defiance again, and from here we're gonna, go into effect and defeat the Stormwind again. And I just think that's just awesome as a concept. It's like the sins of the father, Edwin Van Cleef, just so strongly, sort of just determining every experience of Vanessa Van Cleef, to the point where she's a child building this revenge narrative, and that involves her claiming like the narrative of people, the hope of Westfall, for herself, for her people, which she then applies to, because that's how she sees Edwin Van Cleef. He's the hope of Westfall. Edwin Van Cleef doesn't care about Westfall. All he cares about is getting justice for Stormwind. He's an intelligentsia, right? That's where he comes from. He's not from this like this farming society of poor people. He's a Stormwind man ultimately, and Vanessa Van Cleef taking the ideology of Edwin Van Cleef, but then internalizing from the perspective of someone who is someone from that farming society, who is the different type of community. Yeah, I just think that's awesome. I think Vanessa Van Cleef is like honestly one of my favorite zone characters in all of WoW.
Mm-hmm.
Is cool. Okay, my favorite thing, I think mine's also character based. Mine is actually Brian Stoutmantle and how he represents the complete apathy of Stormwind. Like he represents a parallel to Edwin Van Cleef in that he is someone who like represented the people. He was a farmer who became in charge of the people's militia because he was the only one around with actual military experience. Because of his acts in original Westfall, he is then promoted. He's given command of an entire base in Northrend during the war against the Lich King. He comes back all a decorated hero, and Stormwind is like, okay, we're going to put you in command of like the place you were in before, where you did such a good job being the leader of the people's militia, and we're going to make you an official part of Stormwind's military, and you're going to represent the command there. And Brian happily accepts this. He's like, okay, this is great. I can help people. But in like as you see, like he has done nothing that has actually helped the people. Like this is Edwin Van Cleef if he had accepted that position of power within Stormwind. And it's so sad because it's very clear that Brian Stoutmantle is a good man with good intentions, and yet he is able to have literally zero effect because of his own like fucking like personal blindness.
Okay, I think my favorite thing has got to be like the questing itself. In terms of like, I love the continuing conspiracy. I love the way that it's set up. I love the way that it unfolds. I really like that you get to meet all of the bosses of like the new Deadmines through the questing itself that you then fight later. I thought that was very cool. And I really like the way it sort of sets up the big climax at Moonbrook and then the attack on Sentinel Hill. I think that is put together incredibly well. I think this is just, I think ultimately the best thing about Westfall is just like, it's just a really tightly well done zone.
But didn't you say that it wasn't a tightly... Wait.
I said that I like the way the questing itself was structured and the way the conspiracy unfolds.
But you said it's a well done zone, even though you think like you guys talked about it feeling like half a zone, incomplete zone.
I am talking purely in terms of like the structure of the small scale plot as it is.
That's fair, yeah. Just like the quest line of the Defiance is just incredibly well done.
Exactly.
I agree.
Sure.
Like that is what I mean there. I think there could have been more to it, and I think I wish it was some of these like innovations were in the original version, but like yeah, like ultimately that is I think the best thing about Westfall is it's just a very well competently put together quest line, so long as again you come into it understanding what it's coming from so that you can get everything out of it. So, were we wowed? So I want to say, what did we think of these zones?
I say I liked them. I thought they were both good zones. They were fun to play. I would recommend them to anyone playing WoW.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that in a way they're one zone in a way that's in a closeness that I don't think any of the other zones are like. Either like stuff like Telger Soul is sort of like the same zone kind of done again, except with its changed ending, that sort of thing. That happened a few times. And if some of them were just like completely different zones that did sort of sequel things like Darkshore, but here felt like the same zone. It was like, I kind of love that. I think Cataclysm Zone was actually better. Than the original.
Interesting.
In a way that I think, but in the way that how it perfectly, I don't know, modified and reflected on the ideas of the original that it failed to communicate.
All right. Yeah, no, I think I also like this zone a decent bit. I think this is a solidly I think both of these were solidly compelling zones. I think I still personally put the original zone a little bit above the remake, but I think that part of that is nostalgia talking.
Anyway, what's next?
Right. Well, next is going to be an interesting one.
Ew.
Because our next zone going to is the Barrens.
I repeat. Ew.
Barrens has 3 dungeons in it.
It's also got 3. It's got 3 zones in it because we're gonna. This is one of the 2 zones that Cataclysm split up, but we'll get more into that on our next episode. I've been Ari.
Torin.
Wait, are you guys not Ari or Torn anymore?
I've lost my Tornness. I'm
still Awen, and I will remain Awen even after this podcast has ended.
Nice, and we'll see you all in another episode of Odd by Zones.